right. Well, we are gonna switch over to the insurance talk now. We talked a little bit about NAFA, the National Alfalfa and Forage Alliance, and actually, Glenda Blinder serves on the NAFA board as our insurance expert for all of the National Alfalfa and Forage Alliance. She was not necessarily brought in through MFA. We just searched around, found somebody that had a very good ability to understand the products and communicate that with. So she has actually come with us. She's helped on some of those DC trips. I mentioned that we're working on a revenue and quality program. So those are some things that they're weighing in on. But right now, I think you're going to talk about two of the programs that work a little bit better than the revenue and quality one. Right. So I'm going to turn it over to her. She had brought some handouts, so I'll start passing those around as well. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I'm Glenda Blinder from Salem. I do know Lynn. Actually, it's not very far from me. The forage seeding program under crop insurance, and I get where Lynn is coming from. A lot of the insurance for alfalfa really doesn't work well, trying to ensure your production and stuff, although we're working on it. The forage seeding program does work, and I've been selling it a lot. And what it does is it protects you from when you seed it through that first year, and it will pay you enough to so that you can replant it, because seeding alfalfa isn't cheap either. And so it does help you, give you some insurance coverage, actually at an affordable rate, to cover that first year of new seeding alfalfa. And it's for everything. Again, I'm going to say most of crop insurance is the act of God. If you spray it with the wrong chemical, there's nothing that we can do about that, but act of God is covered. So I've been out doing crop insurance this morning. Everybody's a little concerned about the alfalfa that we seeded, especially in the fall. Did it come up? Did we get a good stand? Is it going to winter kill? The good news is they've got the coverage for that. Forage seeding is available right now in those states in green. And a lot of those states have spring and fall seeded forage coverage available. There's different types of coverage for the new seeding alfalfa. Most of it, I would assume, is you're planting straight alfalfa, which means the stand has to be at least 90% alfalfa. Now we're okay planting a nurse crop with it. A lot of them will plant a lower rate of oats with it as a nurse crop to the alfalfa, especially with the spring seeded. That's okay, as long as the alfalfa ends up being 90% of the stand. You can do alfalfa at that lower, that 60, 89. I don't see a lot of that in my area. Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin. You can also do the red clover, and in Michigan there. How it works, and it's really, really easy. Let's say you planted 50 acres of alfalfa, new seeding. You planted it, let's say you planted it in the spring. You planted it in the spring of 22. It was okay through the summer. Come next spring, when it starts greening up, 5 acres of it died. Whether it was winter kill, some of them were a little bit worried about ponding and the ice smothering it out. You're going to get paid on those 5 acres. It doesn't matter what you get for production off the rest of it. So it doesn't work like your regular crop insurance policy does on corn or soybeans. It's strictly based, it's a replant policy just for the number of acres. And so it says that if you have at least a 75% of a normal stand, they're not going to pay you. On the next screen, well, I told you at the bottom that in South Dakota, I'm from Cook County, 10 live plants per square foot is what they consider a normal stand. If it's less than, if it's 55 to 75% of that 10 plants, they're going to come out and pay you 50% of what you've got coming. If it's less than 55%, they're going to pay you the full insurance rate on those 5 acres or whatever that died. And if it's spring planted and we figure out next spring they die, you know, you can replant it, but you don't have to. The policy doesn't say you have to. You can go in. They say you can't sweeten it up, but once the adjuster's been out there, everybody, you know, you can do it. On fall seeded, We planted it in the fall of 22. Again, not sure. Planted that 50 acres, maybe 10 acres of it just doesn't look good at all. You don't have a great stand. In the spring, they will pay you to replant those 10 acres if it's fall seeded in the spring. And then once you replant them, you'll have full coverage on them. And so if you do fall seeded, you have to buy the policy. Right now, we're in sales closing for our regular row crops, corn, soybeans. It's ahead of March 15th. You can add forage seeding coverage to your policy. It doesn't, you don't pay for it unless you actually plant it. So you can add it to your policy this spring is what I would do. If you don't have it on your policy and you decide next fall that you want to plant alfalfa, you just have to get it done by July 31st. For fall seeded, you have to plant it between July 1st, August 31st. There is no such thing as late planted or prevent plant on forage seeding, alfalfa coverage, like there is corn and beans. And then if you plant it in the fall of 23, you have coverage for this whole winter, all next summer, and you have coverage until next fall. So a whole year you've got coverage. So let's say that, okay, you planted it this fall, planted 50 acres. There's 5 acres that didn't look so good. They're going to pay to replant it. So now you're back to that 50 acres. Then something happens to it this summer, too much rain, whatever, it drowns out. They will pay you then for whatever was damaged. Spring seeded, like I said, you just have to get it added to the policy by March 15th. I will actually ask guys, if you think you're going to possibly plant alfalfa, let's put it on the policy. That way you've got your options. You have to get it planted by May 31st. Again, there's no such thing as a replant or a prevent plant on, or a late planting or PP on alfalfa. And if you spring plant it, it will be good until the following May. So what it really is doing is giving you that first summer and all winter to have coverage on it. It's fairly reasonable. McCook County is, again, where I'm from, but if you do it in the spring, 75% coverage is where we have a lot of it. That appears to be a sweet spot as far as the government subsidizing that premium. But for less than $4, $3.96, you get $146 worth of coverage. Guys tell me that's at least enough to cover their seed. You can go up to that 80% level. $489 for $156. And then I gave you the rates for fall seeded. Of course, fall seeded is going to cost you a little bit more. There's more risk in the fall seeded. So as you can see, it's fairly reasonable to cover. And like I said, we've used it a lot. Most of the guys, they seem to have at least a few acres that just don't make it. So we've used it. Like I said, you can plant ground cover with it as long as you still have that alfalfa at 90%. I don't know, it's out in the country, all these snow piles. I don't know if we're going to get into prevent plant situation. Who knows? We got to start getting some rain first too. But in South Dakota or in Cook County, the final plant date to plant corn is May 31st. If you can't get it planted, you could go prevent plant corn and then plant alfalfa on those acres in the fall. You would get your full prevent plant payment on corn. For most of my guys, that's $400 an acre to go prevent plant corn. And then you have to wait until after June 25th before you can plant your alfalfa, but you're not going to plant it then anyway. Fall seeded can't be planted until July 1st. So I would guess you're probably going to plant that alfalfa in August. And, that might be a really good time to put it in. You can hay or haylage those acres. I caught part of what Lynn was talking about our forage crops. If it gets to be too wet again this spring, you plant a forage crop on there. You can hay it or graze it anytime. Used to be we had to wait till after November 1st before we could hay or graze it. That's too late in South Dakota most of the time. They've gotten rid of that requirement. You can do it anytime. You just can't can't plant corn. So don't try planting corn on those PP acres. That isn't going to work. And you can't, whatever you plant there can't be combined for grain. But hay, haylage, graze it, that would work. Or like I said, the alfalfa would work great. The only catch is I'm telling you that you have a full year of coverage. But if you, on that first year you seed it, if you hay that new seeding alfalfa after August 15th, that will end the coverage. You will have no coverage then if a winter kills, if you take that cutting too late. Okay, that's the good part of the crop insurance coverage. I like that. And I like that forage seeding. Check it out. That works. It works for my guys. Forage production insurance doesn't work with the dam. It really doesn't. And I haven't been putting it on. We're working on it. The National Alfalfa Association, we're working on it. We're finally making progress. I got involved with this 15 years ago because one of my customers was trying to, he's that's what he does. He raises hay. That's his living. It just didn't work for him. So I got involved. I told him I didn't know if I was going to live long enough to make an improvement, but I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. We might finally get some decent coverage for alfalfa production. It is based on your production history. Part of the problem and what I'm trying to work with crop insurance for is it's just like corn. You have 4 years of production history in, let's say, section 10. So you got that, but you're going to keep rotating corn there. But alfalfa, you might plant 4 years of alfalfa on section 10, and then you're going to take that out of alfalfa and you're going to go someplace else. You're not going to put alfalfa back in there. You know, it might be a couple of years. So it's hard to work with that production history on that. That's one of the problems. The other problem is trying to prove up our production. It only works good if you sell it right now. If you sell it, you're weighing it, you've got the tonnage, but you have to keep, the rules say you have to keep track of your production by field, by cutting, and we have to weigh the bales. I don't know if they realize how hard that is sometimes to weigh bales coming off of each field. So it's tough. We're working with that. I don't know if I'll make progress in that part of it or not. So I just made an assumption. If we can prove it up, 5.5 tons in Minnehaha County, last 4 years, at the 65% coverage level, he'd have a guarantee of 3.6 tons, but that's for all of his cuttings. So you'd have $558 an acre in coverage, and the cost is reasonable, $11.75. One of the other problems with this is it's based on a price of $156 a ton. This has got a September 30th closing date. So they set that price like in July of 24. There's nothing in there if it's a drought year, like's happened to us in the past, and all of a sudden by next season, when you're selling alfalfa or you're having to buy alfalfa, the price of alfalfa is doubled or tripled. And we've seen that. That's the part that we're working on. That's the part that I think we're going to make progress on. I'm thinking it might happen in crop year 25, that we'll at least have a revenue component on here, and that will help a lot. So if you can prove up your production, I'm telling everybody, you know, keep track of your production. Like I said, if you're selling it to a dairy, you know how many tons you got, you know, keep track of all of that. And like I said, oh, okay, I jumped ahead, but no revenue coverage on it. There's also no quality provisions in here that really help us. We all know that if it's too wet, it's tough too on alfalfa. You can't get that first and second cutting of hay up because it's just too wet. There goes your quality. That one's going to be a tougher one. We're working on it, but so much of it is we're trying to do it fair and a way to test it. But also there's the factor of, well, I just didn't get around to baling. There was a window. I think they'll end up with, was there a window? Could you have got it done? You know, it's a little bit easier with some of the dairies that are green chopping it, but that is a problem. But right now we don't have any quality provisions in there. So at this point, I'm telling you as an insurance agent that look at that forage seeding policy, forage production. Most cases won't work. It might if you're in the business of selling hay. What we've done is this rainfall policy, and I don't know if any of you've got that, But that rainfall policy works, and it works on established alfalfa, but it only helps for lack of rainfall. So it doesn't help us if there's too much rain. I've been working for a while of trying to add an endorsement that would also look at too much rain during those windows. I don't know where that's going to go, but this is just based on your rainfall insurance. They just take a grid and it says 17 by 17. That's what their literature says. Up here, it's probably closer to 13 by 13 mile grid. So you've got hay right outside of McCook County. And in that 13 by 13 mile rain area, they're going to look at each 2-month period. Did we get 90% of our normal rainfall in that 2-month period? And if we didn't, you're going to get a payment. Now it starts over again. So January, February, there's moisture in the snow. I don't know how much, but let's say April, May, we got a huge amount of rain in April, May, then it quit raining. Well, it starts over again. So you wouldn't get paid for April, May, but you could get paid the rest of the year. And I have some data on it, but it goes every 2-month period. So in McCook County, just hay, you could do $435 worth of hay, rainfall coverage on hay. That would be the cost, $36.74. You don't have to keep track of production. It's just rainfall only. I'm going to split it up equally each 2-month period. If you had this policy the last 10 years and it's sitting right outside of Salem, for every dollar you put in, you would have gotten $1.79 back. Truthfully, for every year. And of course, 22 McCook County wasn't so good. Most of McCook County wasn't so good. For every dollar you put in, you got back almost $3. And we're not quite done with because this is federal, it takes them about 60 days at the end of each period before they've released it. So they haven't released that last interval of November, December yet. But you would have been money ahead if you'd had this policy. Now it also works for pasture. So you guys that have pasture, this works great for pasture. Pasture, we're looking at probably $50 an acre coverage for about $5. You can do it on your pasture. This is a policy that you don't have to do all of your acres, unlike the rest of crop insurance. You can just do some of them, but it works, and it's the best thing I can do right now for alfalfa. So McCook County, like I said, we didn't have a very good year. They're basing it on normal rainfall. It's all NOAA data. That's our normal. That was our actual. I always hope that nobody gets paid in May, June, because you know what? We need rain in May and June. So you don't want a payment in May and June. November, December, we finally started getting some moisture. The rest of the year, you can see how far below it was. And in fact, in McCook County, corn yields, I think, are going to come in at 128. That's how bad McCook County was, the bulk of it. It wasn't a good year for Salem. So that's basically the products on insuring your alfalfa. Like I said, look at that forage seeding policy. That's a good policy. I'm in favor of that one. Forage production, it's tough. You might be able to make it work if you can prove up your production. Forget about using feeding records. You will never be able to keep good enough feeding records. It'll be a pain in the butt to try to make that work. I wouldn't even go there. And then look at maybe the rainfall insurance if you're worried about drought. And then stay tuned. Hopefully in a couple of years, you're going to see that I come back and tell you fix forage production. Okay. Any questions on alfalfa or? Okay. All right. There is another product out here this for protecting on dairies. And this is strictly protecting the price of milk. There used to be an LGM dairy that was looking at the margin between the price of milk and your input, your protein. This is a simpler one, and it appears to be that this is where most guys are going with DRP. You could buy this any time because the price is set based on futures market. The price is set after the market's closed. And so let's say today, I want a quote for this after the market's closed, and you said, yeah, I want it. You have to just get it bought by 9 o'clock the next morning before the markets are open again. You can buy this and that DMC product through the FSA. You can have both. For my dairies that I'm working with, they've gotten away from that DMC and they're just going to this DRP product. Like I said, it's just as price only. That's all we're doing is protecting the price of milk. LGM used to be, and you can still buy LGM dairy, but I don't think a lot of it's getting sold. You can buy it for the whole year. And when I first started doing it, we were doing that. And maybe 2 or 3 months ago, maybe it'd been smart to do it if you want to lock in those higher prices. But most of the time now, my astute dairy people, they're buying a quarter at a time. For one thing, it's just like using the futures. The further out you go, you got the time value, there goes your costs. You can buy it either by class pricing, and most of the time we're using class 3, or component pricing. It appears to work better using the class pricing. And then you just decide how much production you want to cover each quarter. You don't have to do all of your production, but when you tell me that, okay, I want to lock in 1 million pounds for this quarter, make sure you really are raising 1 million pounds. You can raise more than that, but let's not insure more than what you actually normally would raise. Here's our different levels. The premium is due. A lot of this stuff, we used to have to pay for it up front. Now you pay for it at the end of the quarter. So you bought January through March, the billing would come the end of April. It's just like the rest of crop insurance. Crop insurance is the one insurance product you can buy and you pay for it after you know you didn't need it. If you needed it, they take that premium right out of that claim check. You guys that are dairy probably know this better than I do, but class 3 is your cheeses, class 4 is your butter. And we just use class 3 normally, or you can pick component pricing. You could protection factor. It's the higher factor you use, the more coverage you're going to have. And of course, you're going to pay for that. But it doesn't increase the probability of a loss because the price is going to be what it is. It's just if you go at 1.5 protection factor, you've got more coverage. So we could buy April through June. We can buy that now through the middle of March. So you have to get it bought a couple of weeks before the start of the next quarter, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And expected prices and costs will change daily. So this is an actual example. It's one of my customers that on June 10th, he was very smart. He locked in a class 3 price of $24 for that October through December 4th quarter. He insured 1.2 million pounds, and he bought the 95% level. You want to buy a higher level because you want to be as close to that strike price like you would on options and futures as you can stand to afford. And if that gets too expensive for you, then don't take as much protection factor, but it works better to go 95%. He bought the protection factor at 1.5. His guarantee was at $274,000. It cost him $6,600. This is heavily subsidized. When it expired on December 31st, milk was down to $21.11. So he collected $34,000. He collected on that next quarter too. There for a while, he hadn't been collecting, but this is kind of like everything else. You buy it and you hope that milk prices stay up there so you don't have to collect on it. So this is but the last 2 quarters he's collected on it. So then if you have a claim, all you have to do is pretty simple. They already know the price, that's set. You just have to submit the pounds of milk that you actually marketed. Just send in your sheets from wherever you sell your milk, and you just send that in and they will pay you then what he's got coming. And like I said, we made sure when we do this that he does market at least 1.2 million. There's no need to pay for more insurance than what you actually have, because if you actually only produced 800,000 pounds, you're going to be paying premium on 1.2, but you're only getting paid on the 800. So try to get as close as you can on that. So I quoted this on the Thursday, the 21st. I quoted 1 million pounds. And I quoted April through June of 23. And of course, you can see the price. Dairy guys, you know that price has dropped quite a bit. The expected price was 1847. So 95% of it is what we could lock in that day of 1755. You'd have coverage of 263,000 for a cost of $2,400. The actual cost is 4,300 without the subsidy. So you can see the government's paying almost half of this, not quite, but almost half. And then we just wait and see when it expires. The day it expires, which would be the end of June, we look and see where that price is, figure out if he's got a claim. So it's pretty simple, actually. It's pretty simple. That was class pricing. Like I said, I was able to lock in 1755 for 2,400. If we look at component pricing, and my guys have gotten away from it, so I'm not really good at this. You need to tell me what to put in here for butter fat, and there'll be a range. I just plugged in some numbers. And at that point, I could only lock in 1631 per hundredweight for $2,400. But instead of that, I could have locked in 1755 class for about the same money. So that's why, there's debate on whether you want a class or component, and class right now it appears to be working better. What did I miss? I go fast. I know I do, Marty. What did I miss? Questions? If you're a dairy and you're, I check it out. It doesn't hurt at least to check it out. This guy that I work with, he keeps track of the price of milk, and when he thinks that it's a good time to lock it in, he is the one that's calling us and starting to have us watch it for him, which works well. There's a couple handouts about both of those. So like I said, I don't know if all agents can sell forage seeding, PRF. To sell the DRP, the milk, you have to work with an agent. We have to take additional classes to be able to sell milk, or to purchase the milk product. Now, there isn't any limit. It used to be on some of this stuff at how many pounds that you actually raise. So even the bigger dairies can use this product. For some of the bigger ones, of course, they're doing it on the board, and I get that. But for those of you that don't want to just lock it in on the board, the other thing is even if you're astute enough to lock it on the board, watch, because it's so heavily subsidized, what it'll cost you on the board versus after the government's paid half of it. And I have some guys that'll do a little bit of both. They're going to take advantage of those subsidies.
Any questions?